Canaanland Moors. Today's class, we're gonna still Sister Pilar. We cancel Sister Pilar. She's dealing with something, but we're gonna still talk about this whole thing with jurisdiction of lawyers, etc. like that. Yeah, we push that door.
Who's that?
Yeah, we pull it. I was doing some research on the Law Society, and I came into this man on YouTube, an ex-lawyer. So he got some stuff that he's gonna put down for us right now. So we'll just take him in for a little bit and go from there.
Here to talk. Well, I'm here to talk about what ended my law career back in 1984, and to tell you and to show you the smoking gun. I was a practicing lawyer from 1974 to 1981 when I decided that I would retire from my law practice and become a crusader to help the little guy, and that's when I founded the Canadian Farmers Survival Association up near Owen Sound in Ontario. Well, the fight was to help these farmers keep their homes, keep their farms that they've been on for generations, and the small businessman that was battling with 21% interest rates. Some of you seniors will remember those days. Well, I wasn't prepared to let my clients and my fellow Canadians lose everything that they had worked all their lives for. I set up the Canadian Farmers Survival Association, and I hitchhiked across Canada, public speaking twice, saving farm after farm after farm, whether it was in Ontario, whether it was in Saskatchewan or Alberta or British Columbia. I was threatened, my family were threatened, but I kept going. 1981, 82, 83, and 84. When my wife and my children were threatened, my wife said, "John, stop this, or we're going to get hurt." And I did. In the spring, or the May of 1984, I went back into my law practice, paid my errors and omissions insurance, and started to practice law. However, I wasn't as honest with my wife as I should have been, because there was an election going on. And I decided I had to use this election to talk about the banks and the interest that they were charging Canadians. So I worked as the chairman of a campaign, and across the region of York, I stood there as the spirit of Canada, trying to lift people's awareness into what was happening. Unfortunately, the Conservatives got in, and everything I was saying went out the door. 6 days after the election, when I wasn't in the public's eye, I had two members of the Discipline Committee of the Law Society of Upper Canada come into my office in Newmarket, Ontario, where I grew up and well known, and they said, "You've been having complaints about you, you gotta stop practicing law, we're gonna disbar you." I said, "Take your best shots, boys, because I'm not gonna walk away, I've done nothing wrong." So, as it turned out, after a 4-5-day hearing over a 2-year period where I was not working because they made me undertake not to practice, I could not find a lawyer to represent me. Nobody wanted to be tarred with my brush. They came in 1987, I was not even in the country. Arthur Skase was the chairman of the board of the Bank of Nova Scotia, but he was also the treasurer of the Law Society of Upper Canada. The sitting committee of the Discipline Committee knew I was right. They did not make the decision, they passed it to the 40 benchers. And this man, a banker, signed this order disbarring me from my vocation that I had worked for all my life. I am very upset, but the story gets better. Wait till you see my next clip when I tell you where we are today.
Some good Europeans out there.
My name is John Gorman. I'm a retired lawyer from Ontario, and I've been known in the past as the Markham Maverick, the middle class radical, the spirit of Canada, and for the last 10 years, Captain Canada. I'm on a teleprompter today, and I'm not used to doing this, so if you see my eyes roll back to the script, that's why. I have the reputation of fighting David and Goliath battles for the little guy. For over 30 years, I've been using my legal education to warn people of Canada about the treasonous acts of our federal government and the central banking system that has hijacked your freedoms and my freedoms that are guaranteed in our Canadian Constitution. Section 1 to 10 of that act sets out our guaranteed rights and freedoms for all of us. Today, I would like to discuss portions of Section 11 and 12 of the Constitution because it is affecting a very dear friend of mine being held in jail. It's entitled Section 11, Proceedings in the Criminal and Penal Matters. Section 11 reads, any person charged with an offense has a right to be informed without unreasonable delay what the specific offense is. B, to be tried within a reasonable time. And D, to be presumed innocent until proven guilty according to law in a fair and public hearing by an independent and impartial tribunal. E, not to be denied reasonable bail without just cause. This is exactly what I need to talk to you about. Under Section 12, about treatment and punishment, it reads, everyone has the right not to be subjected to cruel and unusual treatment or punishment. These sections I have highlighted for all to read. They fly in the face of what has happened in the last 2 months to my very good friend and a true patriot, George Hugh of Owen Sound, Ontario. This past weekend was our national holiday, Canada First and Canada Day. And most people in this country think they're free. As a former lawyer in Ontario for 7 years, from 1974 to 1981, before I started my crusades to help people like George, I'm here today to prove that we are slaves and we are not free. Case in point is George Hugh, a friend of all Canadians, who has been languishing in a Walkerton jail in Ontario for over 2 months, since April 26, 2011, without having been convicted of a crime. Following this verbal presentation, there is a news release that I wrote 2 weeks ago and issued to the mainstream news media across Canada on June the 27th, in anticipation of a court hearing a week ago Thursday on June the 30th, wherein we expected George Hugh to be released from incarceration for Canada Day, and a trial date to be set for any charges that they might bring against him. On the contrary, the presiding judge in the Owen Sound Criminal Court sent George Hugh back to jail in Walkerton to await yet another bail hearing set for this Thursday, July the 7th, in the Owen Sound Criminal Court, and possibly a 5-day psychiatric examination. At the last hearing, last week, only 10 Canadians showed up in court to support George, and not one media outlet was there to tell of the tragedy of our legal system. George Hugh is not only being prosecuted, he is being persecuted by a legal system out of control. See last week's news release attached, and please make your way with your tent and protest signs to the Owen Sound Criminal Court tomorrow, Thursday, July the 7th, and witness our legal system in action. You may be the next person incarcerated illegally. There will be a series of tapes following this tape that you should come back and visit over the next several weeks. Have a nice day.
What kind of notice is that? Either tomorrow. That's a meeting. That thing there? The thing what I sent to you? Alright. So these, you can hit the light.
Someone saying you can hit the light.
No.
I get fun as though.
Masqueraders. Any,
Turn the fan on.
you can flip that one back here 2 times if you want. Yeah. Any things noticed with regard to what he was saying? Any observances? One thing he was referring to this act. Now, what is it that they're doing with regard to the individual that was talking? Is that they're doing him the same thing like what the NOI did to El Haj, right? Because his claim is that he was disbarred and whatever like that, right? When he's still playing the role of, quote unquote lawyer, per se. He might not have the so-called authority to exercise, but his demeanor, his position, his approach is still lawyer-like, right? Now you had Law Society of Upper Canada up there. Right now, we're talking about a place, organization, whatever, called Law Society of Upper Canada. Right? Now, they're still called that today, but there's no Upper Canada existing today.
Yeah, not common.
So where do they get the idea that they can still call themselves Upper Canada, but there's no such thing as Upper Canada in existence right now? Right? Like fraud on top of fraud that's been going on. You want to hit that Law Society?
The Law Society of Upper Canada. The Law Society of Upper Canada, LSUC, is responsible for the self-regulation of lawyers and paralegals in the Canadian province of Ontario. Founded in 1797, it is known in French as La Barre de Haute Canada. The motto of the society is "Let right prevail." On its website, the Law Society states it has a duty to protect the public interest, to maintain and advance the cause of justice and the rule of law, to facilitate access to justice for the people of Ontario, and to act in a timely, open, and efficient manner.
And then there's a part there about the history. You scroll down. Right, so self-regulation means that they're responsible for their self. Nobody's responsible for them. Right? They're the ones that have the, so-called authority. Right? 1797. Right? Canada was founded in 1867. Right? The Law Society of Upper Canada was founded in 1787. Does somebody know more about the jurisdiction of Canada than even Canadians know? That they're going to call themselves Upper Canada, not just Canada. But, if Canada was founded in 1867, and then their description is saying that they're self-regulatory, in order to use the Canadians and all that, they're not in the jurisdiction of Upper Canada. They're in the jurisdiction of Canada as a corporate entity. But their position isn't based on the founding of Canada. Their position is based on the founding of their little society. that they created. Right? Let right prevail. How many people have had their right violated based on some member of the Law Society of Upper Canada? Right? And from the perspective of looking at the fraud, even the man in the video was referencing an act the whole time as law, like that's the law. The whole time. Everything that he brought up is based on this Canada Constitution Act. Okay? Which we know act is nothing, right? Rule of law, right? De jure law, law based on principles of isonomy, etc. They can't say that they're for the rule of law when everything back in them is an act. And in recognizing that their jurisdictions are fraud, we have to start seeing them like how they are. We can't see them as having some kind of authority. We can't see them as being for the people. Because if they were for the people, everything they would be dealing with would be constitutional. And it would be through the constitution of some republic, not an act. Right? You have the history part there?
Okay, so the history. The Law Society was created in 1797 to regulate the legal profession in the British colony of Upper Canada. The Law Society has continued to retain its original name even though Upper Canada ceased to exist as a political entity in 1841. The Society governed the legal profession in the coterminous Canada West from 1841 to 1867, and in Ontario since Confederation in 1867. The Law Society of Upper Canada's creation by an act of the Legislative Assembly of Upper Canada came some 20 years before the earliest such self-governing association in any other Canadian province or territory. Its creation was an innovation in the English-speaking world, and it became the model for law societies across Canada and the United States. It is one of the oldest law societies in the English-speaking world. In 1994, the Law Society affirmed its role by adopting this role statement. The Law Society of Upper Canada exists to govern the legal profession in the public interest by ensuring that the people of Ontario are served by lawyers who meet high standards of learning, competence, and professional conduct, and upholding the independence, integrity, and honor of the legal profession for the purpose of advancing the cause of justice and the rule of law. The Law Society regulates more than 44,000 lawyers, barristers, and solicitors in Ontario. It is responsible for ensuring that lawyers are both ethical and competent. The Society has the power to set standards for admission into the profession. It is empowered to discipline lawyers who violate those standards. Available sanctions range from admonitions to disbarment. It is based in Toronto at Osgoode Hall. Okay. One second. Effective May 1st, 2007, as a result of amendments in Ontario's Law Society Act, the Law Society regulates more than 42,000 paralegals. Paralegal licenses in Ontario. Paralegals are licensed to provide limited legal services, such as providing representation before provincial tribunals. Effective March 8th, 2008, the benches of convocation, who also serve as adjudicators at discipline hearings and corporate directors at convocation, voted to begin publishing tribunal decisions where impugned members successfully defended themselves at hearings in a going forward basis. The following year, the Society voted to add past decisions as well, but confusion has remained. As of 2011, whenever any past decisions were added to legal databases, the addition date was not included, so lawyers previously unaware of the past hiding of decisions remain disadvantaged. Some decisions favoring members made prior to these dates remain private and unpublished, such as the discipline hearing of a current bencher, Clayton Ruby, who is said to have successfully defended against a complaint. In such cases where decisions are hidden, complaints are hidden. Further, a database of procedural motions has not been made available, again frustrating the efforts of any counsel wishing to properly prepare for hearings or procedural motions. No complete registry of matters heard is made available to the bench, bar, or public. International legal rights bodies have universally condemned justice system actors who fail to make their decisions available as being corrupt, because no party may predict the outcome of any legal proceeding unless it can perform comprehensive legal research. The Supreme Court of Canada has ruled that corporate directors may not hold any other duties in an organization. Several Canadian court decisions prevent adjudicators from holding any other position with the regulator. Under Rule 2 of the Rules of Professional Conduct, which pertains to all Ontario lawyers, including the benchers, conflicts of interest and other unethical behavior are prohibited. The Bencher Code of Conduct also prohibits conflicts of interest. Under Law Society policy, bencher misconduct is not investigated and no complaints concerning Law Society conducts are received until the end of all appeals with regard to any proceeding against a lawyer, even though some matters have run for more than a decade. Nevertheless, many benchers' conflicts of interest counsel hired by the Law Society, its own executives, and even staff counsel have been promoted to the benches of the Superior Court of Ontario by the Federal Minister of Justice, Attorney General, and to the benches of Ontario provincial courts by Ontario's Attorney General. All judges must declare any past all judges must declare any past indiscretions on their applications to sit on the bench. However, no such declarations have ever been made public, strongly suggesting that none were ever declared by judicial applicants. The society is headed by a treasurer. He or she is selected by and from among the benchers who comprise convocation. In effect, the society's board of directors, as the society is an Ontario corporation without share capital. All lawyer benchers are elected by the society's members, and 8 lay benchers are appointed by the provincial government. Section 12.
Okay, yeah, that's good. Okay. You got society here.
Association or company of persons generally unincorporated, united together by mutual consent in order to deliberate, determine, and act jointly for some common purpose. In a wider sense, the community or public, the people in general, Glimmer versus Stone, term society loss, which is a recoverable element in death, action under general maritime law. It embraces broad range of mutual benefits each family member receives from each other, continued existence, including love, affection, care, attention, companionship, comfort, and protection. Thus, widows, parents, brothers, sisters, or child may be compensated for loss of society. That was a ruling. That was a ruling of from company against versus protein company. With that rule, that husband is entitled to damages for loss of wife's society through wrongful injury, means such capacity for usefulness, aid, and comfort as the wife as she possessed at the time of the injury. And that's it.
All right. So, Law Society is an Ontario corporation, right? If the Law Society is an Ontario corporation, it calling itself something of Upper Canada is obviously a fraud. They're obviously playing on people's stupidity because they know nobody's going to challenge them on the authority that they claim to have. Even though there's a federal minister of justice, because, you know, like we were talking about in the meeting earlier, that the jurisdiction that we should be dealing with are federal. There shouldn't be anybody below federal that we deal with. It should be federal and above that we deal with. Right? Because of our position, because of our status where we are in this melting pot called North America, right? Being that we are Aboriginal, Indigenous, the authority that the law society has shouldn't be coming from some act that's out there saying that, you know, that gives them authority. Because even the act, the fact that they're calling the law that created them an act means that they're tied to 1867. Because all the acts that we hear about come out of the Constitution Act. This was the first act that they put in place in order for them to have some type of legitimacy here as a quote-unquote government. Prior to that, you know, they had the Constitution that they were really supposed to be attaching themselves to in order to have the authority that they're claiming that they have. It's not supposed to be an act that gives them that authority. So when we engage, you know, people at courts and things like that, and the first thing they're bringing up is, oh yeah, they got a lawyer, you know, I don't need you or whatever, right? This has to be broken down to them to know that, you know, you're really not represented by someone that's for your behalf. You're represented by corporate directors exercising conflict of interest, fraud, etc. like that, under the guise of an act that gives them this authority that they claim they have. With your mortgage stuff, that they always want you to have a lawyer, whether it's read over your stuff, whether it's sign something, whether it's write the deed for you, right? They always have to, that's how they get their hands in people's stuff without people even paying attention that these guys don't work for me, they work for their personal association, corporation, whatever, that their duty is to bring in finance for this so this can continue to run. And as soon as, you know, they start challenging this act, they end up like, buddy, disbarred, you know what I mean? Can't get any work or whatever. No lawyer's not gonna take his case when he has a case. And no lawyer's gonna take it. That's societal memorandum sent out to everybody. Don't even talk to that guy. If you talk to that guy, we disbar you. Right?
Blacklisted.
Yeah, right?
That sucks. So they made sure he can't defend himself?
Well, you know, they disbarred him. Right? So he can't defend himself. Right? Islam was. Right?
That's crazy.
You know, they disbar him so that he can't defend himself.
That's crazy.
He's one, yeah. Right? And then no lawyer is gonna take his stuff. You know? Messed up position. Right? Now, also too, want to bring up that thing again with the psychiatric examination, because Moors get this on a regular. That they might go to court, they might go to, you know, whatever, and people are thinking that they have an issue mentally because of how they're talking and whatever like that, right? The 2 times that it happened, one time was Brother Shaquan, brother in British Columbia, that they had him in the madhouse because he said that he was a Moor. Like, that's why they sent him there. Just because he said that he's a Moor, he had to do the madhouse, right? And in, dealing with this situation, it was able to be dealt with because of prior situation with Brother Shakim dealing with the same thing. Say that you're a Moor, and then they want to put you in the madhouse to try to, destabilize your foundation. 730 here, that's what they call it in the States, 730 evaluation, right? Psychiatric evaluation.
I think it's called something, a sexual.
And that was about lingo, 730.
Yeah?
Yeah, in New York, the slang.
Yeah, it's
What's that?
If someone says you're crazy,
Yeah.
that dude's 730.
Yeah. So then that's
Yeah.
coming from
hip hop.
court stuff.
Yeah,
It's supposed to be I think it's called a something 11 here, where your doctor,
I cut that.
your doctor can
Speak up.
say that you're crazy, and you can sign an order, and then people are looking for you to put you away.
And speaking of signing orders, remember when you said the treasurer,
Yeah.
the treasurer of, what was it again? The treasurer of something,
Some bank.
Bank of Nova Scotia,
Yeah.
treasurer.
The society is headed by a treasurer. He or she is selected by and from the benchers who comprise convocation.
No, but in the video,
Well, in the video, he was saying
when
Yeah,
he
the
was
guy-
saying that
The president of the Bank of Nova Scotia
the
was
Bank
on
of
the
Nova
board,
Scotia
was the treasurer for the
was
Law
the treasurer
Society,
for the Law Society,
which is not supposed to happen.
which is not supposed to happen because corporate directors are not
Cannot
supposed
be.
to, right? So there's this level of fraud that they're exercising that people aren't even, forget the fraud of $5,000 retainer. They don't even know the foundation that the fraud is built on, that they're supporting with their 5,000, 2,000, whatever like that, even with duty counsel. Because half the people in duty counsel, their job is to get you to plead to something.
No,
Just
they're-
plead.
They're all connected, right?
Yep, big time all connected, right? So the psychiatric evaluation, is this PS?
No,
Yes,
yeah,
sir.
right.
Yes, sir.
Right?
Yeah.
So the psychiatric exam is it's a tactic, you know what I mean? That
It's IA, right?
Yeah. Psychiatric.
So after the H,
HI.
HIA.
yeah, maybe something looking weird there.
Yes. So what were you saying?
Right?
After that?
So this is a tactic that they use to shut up people when they start talking about.
Well, sure. I mean, what they've done is they put you into their system, and then they have their people determining whether you're
Determine
competent
whether-
or not.
right.
And if you're not competent, then someone takes power of attorney all of a sudden, right?
Okay, so we've had situations where people, was it you that they sent to CAMH to go do the,
They sent me to,
but they sent you somewhere to go talk to a doctor or something like that.
when I was in there,
Or, yeah, let's
they,
just-
they had,
yeah,
they had a
let's-
psychiatric doctor like talk to me to kind of see where my head is at.
Right,
And then when I went back to the court case, then he's basically, giving the reports on what went on in the conversation.
right.
And then based on what he said, then they said, okay, you know what, we're going to Sing Sing, so that's going to shut me off.
Right, right. Now, if you could, come up and just talk about this part, the going in part,
Sure.
right? The going in part, but the things that made you recognize that it was a fraud. Because, like you didn't have no lawyer for your trial or nothing like that?
Well, I don't know what it was. All I know is that
Well, technically, too,
they
he should have
kidnapped me from
someone-
my house, and all of a sudden I'm in court, and I basically was saying to them, you know what, I'm a part of this corporation, blah 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 blah. Then they put me on pause and said, here's what we do: we'll have you talk to a doctor to see if you're fit to stand trial. And basically, I was talking to an Asian doctor, and I was just pissed off. So basically, whatever she did, I was mimicking her. she moved forward, I moved forward. And then she getting nervous, and then she left, and then they had a European doctor.
So more qualified.
More qualified, yeah. And then he was like trying to reach out to you, son. So talk to me, and then I was like, I felt for stupidity. So I was talking to him like, yo, man, I mean, this is a corporation, this, that, and the other. And word for word, he said exactly what I told him in the court, you know. And basically, they're like, okay, he told the truth, so you're crazy, you know, because he just repeated what I said, which is the truth.
Right.
And they said, okay, he knows too much. Let's just send this thing. And I'm up in Penitang Goshen for a whole month, and then when I came back, I was like,
Okay. Before the going to Penitang,
yeah,
or I mean during Penitang, when we were doing the calls back
Yeah,
and forth,
right.
messages and
Right.
stuff like that,
Right.
and then you know,
before
were they getting you all the messages? Were you getting all the messages?
yes, I was. Yes, I was.
What was the
There was
dialogue
there's
with them getting you the messages and
They
you know,
were-
things
they-
with food and I remember we were talking about all types of things that was going on there, drugs, trying to give you stuff,
Okay,
making
yeah.
you take stuff.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So when they captured me, they were forcing upon me certain medications and whatnot, and I wasn't taking it. I just put my mouth and spat it out when they left. But yeah, they were drugging me, and even they had these so-called nurses, you know, they try to use as security on me. And I'm like, listen, I'm cool. You don't have to be all AG on me. Relax. You know, you're a nurse. Remember that. You're not a security guard. And I basically looked into their pamphlets, and I read that they can't search my room. They can't, you know, certain things that they have to respect. You know, I
There's
read
all
it out.
stuff in there.
Right.
Right.
In their pamphlets. And then I basically made one phone call to this law society, whatever, that they have, where you just call and make complaints. And I called, I'm like, yeah, you know, I read in the pamphlets that they can't be searched my room. Why are they doing that? After that, they don't search my room. No, sorry. So I made a call, spoke to the lawyer. Lawyer's like, you read this? I'm like, yeah. I was like, no one reads this. And I'm like, well, I read it, and I don't want them in my room. You know what I mean? If I bring some cereal boxes or whatever, they had no paraphernalia at all. Like, you were like property, straight up.
Yeah.
So I'm like, yep. So when it comes to nighttime, look into my room. I'm like, bye, boys. They did their thing, and yeah, like it was like a country house,
Yeah.
you know. But there was like you said, we talked on the phone as much as we can. You know, I didn't feel, you know, like I was in prison, but I was.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you know, we talked and we went back and forth, and yeah, they slipped up big time.
All right. Now, because you said that you went to court, there was a couple court sessions before they sent you to Penitang.
There was that one,
Just the one?
yeah.
Okay.
And when they came back, then that's when they released me.
Right. The judges, who are also lawyers, so we'll talk about them too.
Right.
The judges that heard the case, the first judge, who
Same
sent you up,
judge. Same judge.
same judge both times.
Yeah.
All right. So what happened after with the release, the session, the so-called court session after the release?
So when I came back, the judge is like, so sir, do you understand what happened with you and this and that? I'm like, no. And she's like, excuse me? I'm like, listen, I don't know what the hell's going on with y'all, what you're trying to do to me. All I know is, and I'm telling you this is what happened, okay? It was just some kind of miscommunication. The bus driver remained ignorant, and I just told him exactly what happened. And basically, after I explained to him what happened, I'm like, now you tell me what constitutes mischief, because that's what the police officers charged me with. Like, how can a mischief throw me here? You know? And the whole time I was talking, the judge had her palm on her forehead doing this. Oh my God. You know? And I'm like, I thought it should be equalitarian. You know? I'm putting all these words on notes.
Yeah.
And they're like, yo, this nigga can talk. This nigga can read. You know? And she just felt intimidated, you know, because they know that they messed up. And the lawyers try to backtrack, saying, well, while in the hospital, he was acting. And the lawyer's like, I don't care what he did. Take those handcuffs off that man. Sir, you're free to go. And I'm like, okay, but before I go, you know, can you explain to me, you know, so I don't end up here again, what constitutes mischief? Because all I had on was headphones, you know? And she made a stupid answer like, it's for small headphones, okay? And she's let me go, but she knew that they were on the wrong side. They knew they messed up big time.
What about charges? Any charges?
Oh, all was gone. She just, you know, we messed up.
Yeah.
You know, you're free to go. Take those handcuffs off that man. You know, no more case, so you're free. Nothing expunged. All that. And I'm like,
But ultimately, they kidnapped him for a month.
Right, for a month.
No
Yeah.
doubt.
So on nothing.
On nothing. On
But
wearing
here's
headphones.
the joke. Here's the joke. When they kidnapped me, right? They came into my place, and they're like, one of the police officers recognized me from high school. That was that's the strength of their connection to get me on my corporate name.
Yeah.
Okay, that's just the strength of it. They had no connections to my strong name at all. I even brought my right to travel papers that says I'm a Moor, I'm a national, all this other stuff.
Right.
When I came into the jail, they recorded all personal properties of me, and they recorded that, you know, my schedule fee.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing on my side in terms of this lawsuit that I'll have on the record, for the record, under.
They gave you a 730?
Yep, man.
730. Right? So you have the judge who's a lawyer committing a fraud. Right? Because he should have did what she should have did, what she did last first.
No doubt.
Forget all this stuff. Get this guy out here, take your handcuffs off this man or whatever like that, right? Obviously you're not 730. Right? All the people who were working in the madhouse and all that, right? They have to have brochures or whatever like that, you know. The madhouse, mind you.
Just certifications, the qualifications.
Yeah, the phone call to the Law Society or whatever.
Okay,
rights or whatever like that.
Right.
So they got brochures in the madhouse
that has the right
that has the stuff
I'll bring it next
about
time.
what people, what the rules are, whatever.
Exactly.
That they know crazy people aren't gonna read in there.
Yeah.
Right? But it's in there. So they can not be held liable, held accountable for not providing information on rights to crazy people.
Yeah, right.
Right?
You like, you read it?
Yeah,
like,
right?
Yeah.
Right? And then keep in mind that majority of the time when we're dealing with lawyer, judge, whatever, majority of them don't know what the next one's doing. You know, you can tell one thing and somebody else in that same office is gonna tell you something totally different than what this individual told you, and they claim to be some authority of something. But they're telling you something different than the guy over here around the corner. So they don't know what's going on, right? Which proves their incompetence when their own act says that, you know, competence is part of what makes us who we are.
True.
Everybody who's a member of this has to be competent. It's not to be in question. Everybody's supposed to be ethical. Is $5,000 retainer ethical? It's $2,000 even ethical? But nobody's not calling them on that. As far as, you know, because we got people with complaints to Federal Minister of Justice, Attorney General. There was a couple other people that they mentioned that were down with this Law Society thing, right? And in us exercising our rights, we realize how much they don't have, right? How much authority they don't have, and how much we do have. Because just like them, we have seals that we can use for documents, etc. like that, right? We have our own seals that we don't have to go to them. And really, we're not going to them because, you know, we recognize the fraud that's taking place, right? Like when there's people who say that they'll go, you know, they tried to go to the county to go file something, or they went to the county to file something, you know, or they have a case or something like that, or they have to file it in the court in order for it to be recognized and whatever like that. That's crazy talk. Because these people really don't have any authority. And the authority that they claim that they have is quasi-moral authority. They don't have any. And the only authority they have is what we give them. A majority of times, we give them authority just by what we might utter out of our mouth. You know, just by acknowledging them as lawyer, attorney,
Implied authority.
right? Whatever like that. Okay? Oh yeah. Section 15 of the Criminal Code of Canada. Yes. Section 15. No person shall be convicted of an offense in respect of an act or omission in obedience to the laws for the time being made and enforced by persons in de facto possession of sovereign power in and over the place where the act or omission occurs. Cross-references. This provision does not apply to trials of war crimes and crimes against humanity. Crimes Against Humanity and War Crimes Act, Section 13. Note also provisions of Section 269.1, which limit the availability of the defense of obedience to superior orders to the offense of torture. This provision is the quite limited application, and provisions similar to it were originally enacted in England to protect persons serving the king's de facto who might turn out to be on the wrong side of the Civil War, and to make it clear that it was not treason to the successful claimant to the throne to have faithfully served and then reigned monarch. Synopsis. This provision states that obedience to the laws for the time being made and enforced by those who are in de facto possession or who are de facto in possession of sovereign power in and over the place where the act or omissions occur will prevent a conviction unless a specific exemption is made in the provision creating the offense. This section does not afford a defense to a movie theater that, in compliance with provincial legislation, received approval for public showing of a film later alleged by the Crown to be obscene. Although evidence of the provincial censor as to why he approved the film is relevant to the issue of whether the film was obscene. Similarly, on a charge of disturbing or distributing obscene publications, this section has no application notwithstanding the offending publications were first cleared through customs. So you see that when they take a de facto position, quasi de facto, when they take a fraudulent de facto quasi position, you realize that some things that they do are qualified, are allowed to happen, and then some things aren't. Right? Some people can defend for some stuff, and then some things you can't even bring stuff up because, you know, they're going to say that it doesn't apply. When the reality is that because they're quasi, de facto, and fraud. Nothing that they says applies. And we just have to be in our proper status. So when we put something up, that we have judicial standing for it to be applied. Whether they accept it or not is irrelevant. Because we don't need their acceptance for something, right? We don't need them to say, oh yeah, we recognize that you guys have this right to whatever. We don't need that from them. We just need them to stay in this lane and let us exercise how we're supposed to exercise. Just like how we have a ministry, then we exercise as that. Now they have a position that they have to take to, challenge our legitimacy. Or just go talk to the people who you guys know already been put on notice about our position and let them tell you. Instead of coming to stop us to figure out, oh, you guys are legitimate, or you guys have something set up how it's supposed to be set up, right? Because a majority, like with Amari, with our activity, they're coming through now fishing for info. They're coming now to us to try to figure out, okay, well, how should we deal with these people? Because they're doing something totally different than all these other people over here who talk sovereign, citizen, blah, 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 blah. It's not the same. It's a totally different exercise of a right. When ultimately it comes down to who has a superior claim, right? Does the foreigner have superior claim, or does somebody indigenous have superior claim? And majority of the times, because they took the position of destabilizing the indigenous mindset, even indigenous people are going to go with the fact that the foreigner has superior claim by having some card from them, by having some Indian affairs, whatever jurisdiction that says, oh yeah, they gave us the other, they gave us the this, they gave us the that. Then that means you gave up all your authority. And we want to get people to the point where, they start exercising their authority, opposed to being not sure about it, right? Because once we're not sure about our position, that strengthens their position. Just because we're not sure. Forget about did we send something, did we not send something, whatever. Just the fact that we're still, guessing about who's the corporation and who's the legitimate people. We're gonna have issues with these people. And we have to get people, with our letting them know, we have to get people to the level where they see for themselves that there's a fraud going on that needs to be addressed by people who recognize that there's a fraud going on. It's like with we can't expect black guys to know about more science and teach classes about more science. They're not qualified. That's not even their jurisdiction to even talk or deal in, right? Just like lawyer and attorney and whatever like that. Actually, if you got that, just check you see the lawyer and attorney is in there. So you get those definitions on the record. So in recognizing that there's these individuals, lawyers, attorneys, duty counsel, notary publics, everybody else, they're moving on the fact that we haven't moved. They're moving on the fact that we haven't made any claim. They have all this, credibility, if you will, because the Moors haven't taken their position, right? The treaty is the longest treaty in the world because the Moors are chilling. So the treaty is still in force. The Europeans still here. Where the treaty is supposed to be done a long time ago. Because we came back to our birthright. Why is there an issue of we need to bring up the treaty, right? When the people who, the other party already defaulted their position. The other party already threw in the towel and they said they don't want nothing to do with this. You know, that's why they came up with the democracy. Speaking about that, we want to say rest in peace to James Trafficant, who died a couple days ago. Yeah, a tractor fell on him or something like that. James Trafficant Jr. That's the Ohio congressman who put out the bankruptcy speech about the U.S. being bankrupt and all that.
They cut him with a tractor.
No, they took him out with a tractor.
Yeah, they got him with
They got him with a tractor. Yeah, you know. So they're definitely going after their own who are taking. Because remember, you know, it's not like that's something new. They already got him. They made him do 9 years in prison or whatever on some trumped up charges, and they still took him out. Because what he's saying is detrimental to these guys, to their system being upskill. You got any one of those?
I have an attorney.
So you can read the term first.
In the most general sense, this term denotes an agent or substitute or one who is appointed and authorized to act in one's place.
Okay? So, Law Society of Upper Canada Act, Constitution Act, Blase Highway Traffic Act, Income Tax Act, all these different acts, right? And who has the authority to act? Attorneys. And then all the judges are X's of that. All the majority of people who took oaths have some type of law in their frame of mind, right? So when we hear somebody claim to be an attorney, automatically they're agent. For who? You know, that depends on who hires them, right? They're a substitute for something, right? So if an attorney is a substitute, then there has to be a principal, right? Who that is would determine who hired this individual, right? And the authority to act. Then you have lawyer too?
Yeah. Lawyer. Person learned in law as an attorney, counsel, or solicitor. A person licensed to practice law. Any person who prosecutes or defends causes in court of record or judicial tribunal of the United States or of any of the states or whose business it is to give legal advice or assist in relation to any cause or matter whatsoever.
So when we go watch the movie Liar Liar with Jim Carrey, he's not talking about lawyers. He's talking about attorneys. Because attorneys aren't learned in law. Wow. They're learned in legalese. So the point of the movie, from perspective of swindling the people, is to get them to think that they're talking about law and that something's wrong with law and people who practice law, when that's really not what's going on. What the real issue is attorneys. Because the real lawyers, we're the real lawyers. Because we're learned in law. And we don't need no license to learn in law. But you need a license if you're gonna be an attorney, right? When we make the statement, you know, like in the law department, we make the statement, you know, we're not nobodies, you know, counsel and we're not no power attorney, whatever like that. We're not no lawyers giving that back, you know. We just know some stuff, right? Because that's the disclaimer, so that the attorney people don't come and try to, you know, shut us down. Because, you know, we're not in the jurisdiction. No different than with the plates. You know, those 4 numbers, whatever, flags and all that stuff, that lets them know that we're out of the jurisdiction. Right? Same thing that our discourse lets them know that we're not in your jurisdiction. Yeah, we study law. Right? But we are not attorneys. Yeah, we can prosecute. Yeah, we can defend. But we're not attorneys. Our position isn't, you know, agent, substitute, authorized to act and speak legalese. Our authority is to know what the law is, because the law comes from our ancient foremothers and forefathers. And once we know what the law is, then we know where these guys are at, what their position is. You know, just like when we spoke about, you know, going to putting the Morris seal on a document and then going to a notary to get it notarized, right? The notary is gonna say that's already notarized because there's a seal on it, and they recognize, you know, once they see the seal, they already know what it is. It's not a thing where they're gonna question, because, you know, they're from a society just like these individuals who have their own plates and whatever, then they have their own society. And, you know, societies are going to mingle in a melting pot like this. You're not gonna have a superior and a subordinate or whatever. Everybody's gonna be, you know, you have Sikhs that are judges. They got their turban on and all that, sitting on the bench. That means they had to go to law school with the turban on, sit on the bench. You know, they had to be apart. They had to be barred in order to exercise as a judge or whatever they're exercising as. They need that authority from them in order to exercise. We don't need that authority. We can just exercise because we're the heirs to the land. We're the ones that have the real authority. And only with us exercising it as such will it come to fruition. It's not going to come to fruition with us not recognizing what we have, not recognizing that, you know, we don't have a law society, but we have a law department. We don't have a Ministry of Transportation, but we have a Department of Land, Travel, and Navigation, and all that. You know, so there's going to be challenging us on what we claim to know. And if we're claiming that we're Moors, then that means, you know, we taught civilization. So we better know what we're talking about if we're saying that we're Moors. We better know that these guys are a fraud, and that, you know, there's nobody called a lawyer, and anybody calling themselves a lawyer, they're really an attorney front. Like they got some, you know, authority over something. Right? Sis, I don't know if you want to bring up those questions that we were talking about earlier, so we can.
Sure. I've asked a lot of questions already, so you have to remind me which ones I asked.
Which ones did you ask me?
I think those ones were the ones pertaining to going forth with applying the knowledge.
Right, yeah, right. So what to do as you go. And we're talking about how, everything overlaps into everything else.
Yeah.
Right? So there isn't this information, then this information, then this information, then this information, and keep going. All this is just one stream of information that we're getting at. We get some here, we get a little bit here, we get a little bit here, and we have to stitch this thing back together. Because like you're saying, our mentality is warped in the first place. So as we get the information, we have to clean up what we have in here that's gonna cause us to not go with the flow of the information, right? So in studying, you get more information, and as you get more information, you're supposed to get rid of what you don't need anymore, or that you're not using, or that you realize this is a fraud, I don't need this, and don't even have it in your mind. Because once you start mixing this information, this new information, with the old mindset, you're gonna call stuff to yourself that you don't want, opposed to repelling things that are coming at you. Because the so-called vampires will feed off what you have in your mind. They'll use that to get to you. So you have, for example, everybody has family who's in church or whatever like that, right? And then we start talking about what's the origin of religion, whatever stuff like that, right? We bring up Nicene Conference and legitimate, factual things to prove that their stuff is a fraud, but they don't want to go with it because we're the devil and stuff like that and whatever. Now, if our mindset is, well, maybe I'm being hard on them, or maybe whatever, opposed to this is what the truth is. You guys don't know what the hell you're talking about. I'm out of here. Then they'll be able to get you in the tug of war, trying to justify to them something that they ain't never gonna get, because here they're not there, right? Their mentality is, European told them whatever, and that's what's real. And there's no way that because you used to be right where I'm at. We used to be niggers together doing nigger stuff, and now you're trying to tell me that you know something, I'm supposed to listen to you when, the European gives me my welfare check, and the European gives me my plates, and the European gives me my whatever it is that they claim is what life is about, when that's not really what this is about. This is so much higher. This is so much beyond where people think that this is. That it's imperative that we at least attempt to tell them something, so that eventually, hopefully, that seed gets some water in their mind and they'll be where we're at. If not, then let it. Like we're saying, can't lead the horse. You can only bring the horse, and that's it. No hanging off. No hanging off horses and stuff like that, so they can drink something. Right? It's futile.
I have a question then, because brother Shaquem?
Yep.
Shaquem, we were having a discussion outside, and he was basically getting me to start looking in depth at the terms that we currently use. So one specific word we looked over was the word overstep, to understand. So now when you're in a court and the judge asks you, do you understand? Are you automatically supposed to say no?
Yeah.
And what would be... Go ahead.
Well, this is what I would say to kind of clarify, to kind of clear that up. I tell the judge, I don't understand, I could never understand, but I fully do comprehend everything that he just told me.
I guess it comes down to the etymology of this too.
Right. Because, and then also keeping in mind with all that is, in what context is that question asked?
Yeah.
You know, because if that question is asked by the judge, so-called judge, before he even puts his stuff on the record, who he is, when you answer, whether it's yes or no, you just gave jurisdiction by answering. Just because, you know, the question belongs to you, belongs to him, and the answer is yours. And you don't have to give it. Because he's not legitimate. And he hasn't even proven himself. But he's got questions. Asking stuff. When the first issue at law is status. So if status isn't established first, then nothing else means anything. And the only way it means something is if we acknowledge it. Because you'll notice that in tribunal situations, majority of time, the only way that the so-called judge is going to say something or speak or whatever is if somehow he gets authority from the individual who's up there for whatever they're up there for. So that they'll do the same thing, you know, state your name. Oh, my name is whatever. You just gave jurisdiction because we usually be telling him to state his name. But he asked you to state yours. Opposed to stating your name. Because the first issue is status. So if status isn't put on the record, that means everybody who's in the court coming out and saying, yeah, I am so-and-so, here's ID or whatever, to prove 3 pieces of ID, prove who I am. I'm so-and-so, here's ID, prove who I am. I got this plaque right here that I got from Law Society of whoever, you know, to be the authority. If they're not doing that, then there's nothing to talk about until they do that. Nothing. Right?
So they have to establish their status.
Yeah.
On the record.
Based on us requesting that they do. Not them on their own saying, oh, here's the stuff, but they never
Improper
put anything on the record. Yeah.
So if they go around your questions and start asking you questions,
Yeah.
you don't answer nothing. You
Like
don't say
you-
nothing.
No
Continue
answering
asking
questions
your
for them.
questions.
You ask them your questions.
Yeah.
Right back to them.
Yeah, because
You know?
if you go in proper persona, you're going to identify yourself anyway.
Right.
Here in proper persona,
Exactly.
X-Row.
And then the next stage is them present themselves.
Yes.
In proper
They have
facade.
to, yeah. But if you just walk in under the straw
Right.
and
Then
they
they
start
don't
to
have
ask
to
questions, you could fire back.
Right.
Let's establish status before we start talking about moving on.
Right. Right.
Exactly that.
But in straw status, you know, you don't really
You can't really talk
have
like
that say really.
Yeah. So it's a mix.
So it's, you know what I mean? Because your
But
status.
if
has
we
to
go in
be-
proper person, then
Yeah,
it's
once
not
you go in
even an
proper
issue.
person,
It's not even an issue.
it's not an issue. Status is first issue at law.
Yeah.
What's your status? You need that on record.
Yeah.
Oh, bailiff, get him out of here or whatever. Oh, so you're admitting that there's no trial here today and no case or nothing like that? All right, that's what it is then.
So as long as we go and establish proper persona,
Right?
we're putting on the
Ultimately, it's
record.
not about going in there.
Yeah. if we
Right?
could
Ultimately,
avoid-
it's about avoid those places at all costs. Because if we don't avoid those places, then you know
They're gonna get
they
us
have
somehow.
room to
Yeah.
kind of, you know, get away with stuff.
So they can easily dismiss you and then have a bench warrant for you afterwards.
Right.
for the straw.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when even with the issue of status, them saying anything contrary to what we know as the law, you know, they say, oh, yeah, well, you know, the Constitution Act says, well, that's not, you know, objection. That's not law. That's private corporate jurisdiction. That has nothing to do with, you know, now talking like this because, you know, you put status on the record or whatever, right? So now we can have a discussion, right? Another thing too is with status being put on the record, them not putting their status on the record in propria persona is because they know that it's diversity. They know that they really don't have authority unless it's over, you know, this is a court full of Europeans. But if Asiatic has a European name and he doesn't look up, he's just looking at this paper and it says John Smith or whatever, then in his mind he's talking about European. Regardless of what that guy looks like. The fact that his name on this paper is a European name, oh, okay, I have jurisdiction in this matter, so let's go ahead with the case.
Indeed.
And I'm glad you brought that up because another thing I wanted to ask was when you're proclaiming your nationality and you go through the name change, how do you know what name or like what surname is appropriate for you as a Moor?
Well, the first it's correction, not a change.
Okay.
Because
Appellation or name.
the correction is
Names are what you do to property. You will name properties. Properties have names. People, persons, human beings don't have names. You have appellations.
And what is like the actual definition of appellation?
Title.
That's what you title. What it's like.
It's a title.
yeah.
But Sir Lancelot, Isaac, Lord Newton, Lord, Sir,
Yeah.
those are titles. And they copied us with our last names, L-Big, L-E-Big.
So of the so you have alright, so Jessica Jeff, European minded Asiatic, comes into this information, says, okay, I'll proclaim my nationality, right? She could say hyphen Bay, hyphen L, hyphen Al, hyphen Ali,
They.
hyphen Day, right? Could say that. Now, if you're somebody who is brought into existence by a parent who had some knowledge of self and they named you something not European, right? But the last name is still a European name, you can just take whatever the first name is that's not European, put Elbe or whatever on it, and then there's your name, if you want to do that, or your appellation, right? So that's a correction, right? Because we know that anybody in this land that has a European name more than likely has a birth certificate. Right? And if you have a birth certificate, you should be working toward correcting that issue. Right? Because it's a birth certificate, not a birth certificate. So this birth and this birth is two different births. They write this, but they mean this. So they want to get everybody to have a birth certificate, which makes them property.
Yeah, starting the law.
Okay.
Oxford.
Yeah.
Oxford's version of appellation is name, title. That's it, name, title. And then it goes into its etymology.
Right. Okay. So appellation, correction, or name correction. Once you say change, you're saying that somebody had to do that for you. When you say correction, you did it yourself.
Indeed.
When you say change, somebody has to do that.
And that would be the same as to like us having our European names in the first place.
Right, and you have a European name, you want to call yourself Shaka Zulu because you found out your African history, so you go down to the court, fill out some whatever, name change, whatever like that, then they give you something, then you take all those papers and you go around tell everybody, hi, I changed my name, this is my new name, but you're still corporate ward of the state. You're not free. You're still paying all the stuff that you were paying when you were this European name. Right? Whereas with the correction, you're taking it on yourself to make these alterations. And once you're taking it on yourself to make the alterations, then that means obviously you're the authority. And if you're doing it, then you are the authority.
The BER.
Yeah.
So the BER is what it is, or that's what they want you to be, is the BER.
Yeah, the BER.
So why are they writing in BIR all the time?
They're writing the BIR for misrepresentation.
To trick you.
Just
So
the
the birthday, the
full-
birth certificate, and
right.
everything.
Right? But it really should be
BER is the proper.
But then if they put BER in the document,
You know what's up.
then everybody's
people are
gonna
gonna
go.
start looking it up.
Gonna be looking at what.
Yeah.
So I never heard that before. Right?
And BER is based on maritime law. Those are two laws.
Okay.
Maritime law and law of the land, or common law.
So maritime law is the BER.
Yeah, that's laws of the waters. So they're saying that you're on a ship and you're in the middle of the sea,
Yeah.
and all the laws apply to the ship.
And BIR is.
Yeah, you birth a ship by bringing the ship to dock.
Yeah, it's just a word that sound. It's just you know, yeah.
It's trick knowledge.
Just like more. More is also.
I guess it's like with the moms. Like I went through this with my son the other day. I was explaining to him, well, the European system said it's your birthday, but it's really his Earth Day.
Right.
Indeed.
And I
Right,
said it's
right.
your mother's birthday.
Right.
This was the day she gave
That
birth
is
to.
sick.
And he
Right.
came, it licked into
Yeah.
him like, okay.
Okay.
So,
I like this.
why, so all the kids that you
It's
have,
your mom's birthday.
it's your mom's birthday.
Yeah,
Because
right.
I said to him, yeah, let's do something for your mom's birthday because it's her. This is the day she gave you
Right,
birth,
right, right.
and you're celebrating your Earth Day.
Right.
I like that.
Right.
Facebook.
Never thought of it like that.
Facebook. Like,
Just
it's
keep
mom's
doing
birthday,
that.
not your birthday.
Put that on a card.
Right? And that's what it's about. Like with regard to the first question. Now when you start getting this information and then you start thinking, you answer your own stuff. And you'll find more answers than you're gonna get out some book or whatever. You just pull stuff from the ethers as answers. And it's gonna be right and exact.
Because now you go tell all these ladies they got like 3 kids and they got 3 birthdays.
No doubt.
You know what I mean?
They're happy.
Right?
3 different gifts, right?
That changed everything.
Alright, so we just got
Yeah,
Why is that
it's my birthday tomorrow.
We just got
How you mean? Well, I had Joseph. Oh, okay.
That was the day you gave him birth.
BER.
Multi-hours.
Birth. More. Ship. In suitable place. Provide sleeping place for.
Oh, word more? Get out of here, son.
For birth, for BIR?
BER.
That is.
BER.
Oh, for BIR.
Yeah. Right, come again with it? More what?
More ship. A more ship.
So more ship is one word there, sorry.
No, it's in brackets. More is the name,
And then ship
and
is
ship is in brackets. So they're saying that it's a type of ship. That docks.
Ultimately, I have to do
No, or
with
is it the equipment on the car? There's the moor of the ship, right? Like when they dock, you might
Yeah.
call them moor?
Yeah, that's the docking.
Yeah, okay.
The docking is more,
Okay.
right? Or birth,
Or birth. And that's where it comes to okay.
right? And then the docking is the child
Can you see that?
being put on the paper to be, whatever they claim that the child is,
Yeah.
Product.
right? As far as the quote unquote name. The docking of the vessel.
Yeah, yeah. So it's like the baby being born,
Right.
they put him on paper,
Right.
whereas the ship comes in dock.
The
Comes in
manifest.
and docks.
The manifest.
Right. Right. Well, that's where the certificate comes in,
Yeah.
right?
Manifest.
So the certificate is the manifest,
The paperwork.
the paperwork
Yeah.
for the
Product.
docked ship, which is a more.
And that just goes back to the fact that it was us who travel on the waters to call us enemies.
Right. And also, now and then all that with the whole maritime admiralty, you're dealing with the water breaking, and then the child being in water for 9 months, and you know this competitive continuous repetition of water is fluid, whatever, right?
Does that involve anything to do with the zodiac too?
Majority of it is astrological.
That's the right word.
Yeah, the majority of it is astrological. You know, because you know the Earth Day, the sun's in a particular position, moon's in a certain position. You know, certain alignment in the universe.
Yeah.
All different planets are in different positions or whatever. When the child hits the Earth, there's a etheric resume.
Yeah.
That, you know, if you know that, then you know you'll figure out whether you're pinky or the brain, and then you make a decision based on where you come in, or where you're docked, right? And then birth,
Trickery.
right? Birth certificate is the manifest. It's also a receipt for what the parents give up, and then they get the birth certificate receipt that, you know, you sold your child to us, so you get a receipt. So anytime we ask for that and you show it, you're letting us know that, you know, you sold your stuff to us, and then we're just holding it for you until it's at the age of majority where it can make decisions on its own.
Make straight.
Until that, it's a ward. And because it's a ward, it needs a
Jail.
just because it's a ward, it needs a warden to take care of it until it's fully grown.
I had a judge tell me that we don't do X-rails in court. Like, what would you say to that? The judge said, what are you talking about X-rail?
Well, he's not Article 3 judge, that's why.
That too, the court, the jurisdiction is probably not legitimate,
Right.
so they can't hear that argument.
That's what Supreme Court.
So you gotta go to a higher court probably.
Article 3 judge, she's
He's
not
not
Article 3
qualified to
judge.
handle that. You know.
Exactly.
Not
So-
necessarily that they don't want to hear it personally,
He's not
Yeah.
qualified,
but
but he's not telling
that
you
court doesn't deal with
And
that level of.
Yeah.
That's like with counsel. You know, somebody says, yeah, we got duty counsel for you. Oh, duty counsel. No, duty counsel. No, but I want duty counsel though. No, well, we don't have that here or whatever. Oh, okay. You know, you guys let me know that you're not legitimate. Because you should have counsel.
Yeah.
Counsel, SCL at the end.
Actually,
The spelling
you
is
can pull that to
Yeah.
counsel.
Counsel?
Yeah, there's counsel, like
See if it's in
counsel.
where's the
There's
little
counsel, there's a consulate. And as a consulate, we have our own,
Consulate.
our own nation of people to represent us. That's our own consulate. But a counsel is like you need somebody to talk to you, like, you know, like you need help or something. So, word technology, like these Europeans are not
Council
geniuses.
ends in IL and the council.
So,
C-O-N. How do you spell SEL, right? Then?
C-O-U-N-S-E-L is
That's
counsel.
counsel.
And
That's what they
consulate-
want. That's what they have.
And consulate, C-O-N-S-U-L-A-T-E. Consulate.
All right. So this is the unabridged dictionary. Consul, an officer appointed to reside in a foreign port or city, chiefly as the representative of his country's commercial interests. A chief magistrate of ancient Rome or the French Republic. A counselor, right?
But sometimes in court, I'll say, do you have counsel? Are you obtaining counsel? So are you obtaining somebody to speak for you? Or retain somebody to speak for you?
And at that point you say,
No, but you're in your jurisdiction right then and there if you have a counsel.
Right. Counsel, C-O-U-N-S-E-L.
Yes.
To give advice to, admonish, advice, to take counsel, deliberate, mutual consultation or deliberation, opinion, advice, deliberate purpose, prudence, a lawyer of lawyers engaged in a cause in court, an advocate.
Lawyers and lawyers. I love that.
Right? Counsel. So the difference,
Big difference. A lawyer of lawyers.
right? And then that was the unabridged dictionary. So it's
Counsel is the root word.
like those are the two. So this is the origin of this. But all they talk about is this. They never talk this.
What they?
Right.
The top one is that you're doing that yourself.
Right. The top one is the one where we're at. Let me get that. Where's that thing? So at the back of Constitution, back of the Law Dictionary, 8th edition, we have the Constitution back here. And Article 3, Section 1. The judicial power of the United States shall be vested in one Supreme Court, and in such inferior courts as the Congress may from time to time ordain and establish. The judges both of the Supreme and inferior courts shall hold their offices during good behavior, and shall at stated times receive for their services a compensation which shall not be diminished during their continuance in office. Section 2. The judicial power shall extend to all cases in law equity arising under this Constitution, the laws of the United States and treaties made or which shall be made under their authority, to all cases affecting ambassadors, public ministers, and consuls, to all cases of admiralty and maritime jurisdiction, to controversies to which the United States shall be a party, to controversies between two or more states, between a state and the citizens of another state, between citizens of different states, between citizens of the same state claiming lands under grants of different states, and between a state or the citizens thereof and foreign state citizens or subjects. In all cases affecting ambassadors, other public ministers and consuls, and those in which a state shall be party, the Supreme Court shall have original jurisdiction.
Supreme Court.
So if you're a public minister, consul, or ambassador, the only court that should hear your stuff is the Supreme Court. Because no other court has the judicial authority to hear matters involving consuls, ambassadors, ministers, etc., because they're outside of the jurisdiction of anybody who's not called supreme.
And we are supreme.
Right? And we are it. Right? In all other cases before mentioned, the Supreme Court shall have appellate jurisdiction, both as to law and fact, with such exceptions and under such regulations as the Congress shall make. The trial of all crimes, except in cases of impeachment, shall be by jury. So any case, if it's not impeachment, should be by jury. And we don't see any juries in any of these courts around here at all. Right?
And juries should be members of your own peers.
And juries have to be members of your own peers. You can't have foreigners on the jury if you're Asiatic. Now, if you're Asiatic fronting like you're Negro, black, colored people, you have a European name, then more than likely all the jury's going to be Europeans.
So as a Moor, if you get to the state where you're at the Supreme Court, you could demand that all your juries have to be Moorish Americans.
Right. Because especially if you're in the position of defendant,
Okay.
you have a right to trial by jury. That's of your own peers.
And you pick your own. Not like how they do.
Right, exactly. You know, because
And you be stuck.
they have all dirty ones on your jury. The trial of all crimes except in cases of impeachment shall be by jury, and such trial shall be held in the state where the said crimes have been committed. But when not committed within any state, the trial shall be at such a place or places as the Congress may by law have directed. Section 3. Treason against the United States shall consist only in levying war against them, or in adhering to their enemies, giving them aid and comfort. No person shall be convicted of treason unless on the testimony of 2 witnesses to the same overt act, or on confession in open court. The Congress shall have power to declare the punishment of treason, but no attainder of treason shall work corruption of blood or forfeiture except during the life of the person attainted. So by claiming to be consuls and public ministers, that puts us in a separate jurisdiction. That if they recognize that, then there's no need for them. Because then we're the actual judges, and that's really our court. And we can go in there and say, yeah, this is dismissed, and walk out the court. Because like they're not supreme. And if they're not supreme, they have no judicial standard. Zero judicial standard.
Too bad nobody knows on this, man.
Right? You know, and they could know, but they want to be Negro black colored people.
Any religious Christians.
They want to be Christians and they want to be Muslims and Hebrews and European and all this other stuff.
You're going to tell us Christian status.
When all they got to do is claim
status. So you're removing yourself from more, and all the things that we're talking about is being a Christian. It's status, not a religious thing.
and people don't recognize that Christian, Islam, Judaism, whatever is political, not religious. So they trap themselves already without even having a discussion about anything, just by uttering that I'm a Christian. Any other questions? You got anything? This might be about it. There's no more questions. If anybody's free, next Sunday, October 5th, Lula Lounge, Dundas, Dufferin, somewhere down there. At Lula Lounge, there's the 27th Letters fundraiser. This is one of the Moors. 27thletters.com. One of the Moors is putting out a book on all the letters that he sent to his daughter when he was in prison. So he's doing a fundraiser for the book that he just started writing. October 5th, that's next week Sunday at Lula Lounge. You got me performing. You got
what time is that at?
I believe it's 7 p.m. I think, right? You got Roots Kizzy May, Red Reds, and then there's this name right here, a new name on the scene, Raz Freshco. If you never heard of him, make sure you check him out. Should be a nice little show. I think it's 10 at the door. And that's Lula Lounge next week Sunday.
What time?
I believe 7 p.m. But let's check the site. If you want Lula Lounge website or the 27thletters.com website, all the info will be there.
It's still class in the afternoon though.
Huh?
You'll still have classes?
Yeah. We'll do class and then go over there and beat up the show after. Yeah, so I'm pretty sure it's 7 starting. So we might have I don't think we'll have an early class that day, but we'll probably cut it short or something. Probably do like an hour or try to start early or something. Do like a 4 to 6.
So the Skype thing with Gail Sanders' wife didn't happen?
Yeah. We're gonna do that next week or something.
Okay. That's just
And if that's it,
She's gonna cover the same lawyer thing that we
yeah,
touched on today?
But she has her own
Okay,
stuff that
own
she's going on with
situations,
these lawyers and all that. That's crazy. The level.
Should we be adding more to it than what we heard the last time? Or?
Yeah.
I was here when she spoke.
Please, brother. Anything good?
So let's just close out. And that'll be it. Face the east. You got a 45-degree angle. 5 on the left, 2 on the right. Allah, the Father of the universe.
Allah,
Father of love. Father of truth. Peace. Freedom. And justice. Allah is my protector. My guide. And my salvation. By night. And by day. His holy prophet. Noble Juali. Islam. Peace and Hotep. And Brother Tallahassee said Islam's all the Moors too. You know, you haven't seen him in a while.